Hey everybody, welcome to PBA Radio. It's Chris Guns. In this segment, my guest is Axel Murillo, strength and conditioning coach for Chad Dawson. Didn't go as well as he'd hoped, I'm sure, last weekend for Chad against Andre Ward, but it moves on, and Axel's going to let us know what his next move will be. Let's check in with Axel, see what he has to say. Axel Murillo, thanks for joining us on PBA Radio. Fresh off your Chad Dawson, Andre Ward fight last weekend. Didn't go as well as expected. How difficult was it to get Chad at 168?
It wasn't difficult at all. The biggest question I've been asked after is, was it the weight? Was it the weight? Was it the weight? It wasn't the weight. He didn't struggle. We didn't have to dry out. We didn't have to miss meals. We didn't not drink water. The only day we actually dried out, which is usual, is just the day of the weigh-in. Had it been the weight, you would have definitely seen him after 10 rounds needing some type of, medical attention. But he was fine. He was fine after the fight. He'll even admit that, the weight really didn't bother him. Now, it is different. At that weight class, these guys are, they might be smaller, but, I think we maybe underestimated his speed, his mobility.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big factor possibly in the performance.
How was he looking in training and sparring? Really good?
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we there was no complaints. Normally when guys start to dehydrate or, when they start to cut weight too much, they start complaining about a lot of fatigue, overheating, or cramping. None of that occurred in training camp at all.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there was days actually where we were able to take off more than normal, because he was so close to the weight.
Yeah, a lot of people thought Chad looked dead at the weight, but they just never saw him weigh in 168, really. Maybe just, of course, more fat had to come off, more liquids had to come out, so he will look different. But during the fight, were you surprised at how he looked during the fight?
I was surprised, that he was, some of the punches that he was being caught with that, kind of surprised me. When he would come back to the corner, normally the first thing I do is I check his, I used to keep my hand on his chest to check his heart rate. Wasn't elevated, and he was talking to Scully, but it just seemed like he was frustrated and maybe just, a little bit, I don't want to say, a little bit confused maybe,
Mm-hmm.
As what to do next.
Yeah.
So, he never admitted that, or he never told me it was the weight.
You know how fickle the boxing world could be. Do you worry about maybe blame being put on you, or where do you think the blame lies?
I think, we're all a team, and we all share the blame, In my opinion, I'm thinking, our first fight at 168, which he hasn't been 168 in years, and, we're taking our first fight at 168. The way he does it is we go after the very best at 168. Usually a guy will take I won't say a tune-up, but not such a difficult fight when they come in to try a new weight class.
Mm-hmm.
You see guys when they move in weight class, well, they're not coming to challenge the best, but, Chad, the way he is, the kind of person, the kind of champion he is, he wants to, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go after the very, very best.
Yeah, and what's your opinions of Andre? He's
correct. I'd have been a little more comfortable with him going, testing himself at 168 with somebody else. But like I said, the type of champion and athlete that Chad is, he says, look, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go after the best. That's all I want to do is I want to fight the best.
Mm-hmm. And some people, I'm sure you heard it, but usually it's coaches in boxing. But a lot of people don't think that boxers need a strength and conditioning coach. What do you say to those people who question how important you are to a corner?
Well, I'm going to say that those boxers won't be around long enough or won't be champions long. You look at the ones that are in at the top, minus one. There's only one guy that does it that's different, and it completely baffles me, which is, Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really use one. He's got his method, but that method works only for Floyd. Doesn't work for anybody else. Other than that, if you've got the right guy, who gets along really well with the boxing trainer and knows what his role is, I think it's a great benefit because it can actually make the fighter's job a lot easier and the trainer's job a lot easier. As long as they know their role, like I do. I don't get involved in the boxing part, I don't tell the coaches what to do. I don't tell them, about, hey, look, he's eating these punches, he's dropping his hands, his footwork's not off. That's not what I do. So,
Do you just focus on strength? I'm sorry. Continue.
I'm just, I'm saying, if you get the right guy who's used to, conditioning just boxers or athletes like that, and I think it's a great help, and it's very necessary. And
you do work with other athletes, though, right?
Yes. I do work at the Fitness Principle with Mackie Showstone, and we do work with other athletes, hockey players. Mostly, though, I only work with boxers, mostly. I would say probably 90% of the people I work with besides regular clients are boxers. And, like I said, I adapt to the boxing trainers so as to make sure that whatever they want out of the athlete, I get it done.
Now, do you offer advice, or do you give Chad any do you tell him how to fight his fight, or do you tell him what you want him to try, or does John Scully just focus on that?
No, John Scully focuses on that. Sometimes I'll give, with John Scully there, not to step on his toes, I'll give him a little bit of, of not necessarily technique, but, some advice, like maybe, going for the body. Mm-hmm. So, because I know how hard and how strong Chad is, but Chad is sometimes when he's not on, he's not on. But when he's on, he's really on. Yeah. But it doesn't, I've never seen him so off like he was for this fight.
Yeah. What weight would you recommend he fight at?
I think he's going to be mentally and physically a lot more comfortable staying at light heavyweight.
Did you talk to Chad after the fight was over?
Yeah, we did. We actually spoke, and he says, it was just totally different, not what we expected, and he is going to stay at light heavyweight, and that's his kingdom, and he is the king of that weight division, and Andre is the king of the 168 division. Let him have his own kingdom.
So you plan on being in Chad's corner for his next fight?
Yes.
And who are some of the guys in other sports you do work with, or boxers? What other boxers do you work with here?
Last night I was actually on the ESPN card. I worked with Jessie Vargas. I was in his corner with Roberto Alcazar, who was training him. Unfortunately, I only had about 3 weeks to work with him, but some of the work actually paid off, and he felt really great and had a good performance last night. I've worked with Joan Guzman on his fight in March with Jesus Pavon. I've worked, for Top Rank, sent me to work with Castillo. They sent me to California with Morales before. So I've worked with quite a few guys. I helped Anthony Link on his fight with Chad. I did spend some time here in Vegas. I did live here for about 4 years before I moved back to Louisiana. So I used to help Jesse Reed with quite a few of his fighters, Todd Fields, Aaron Williams. So I've been around a lot of them, and the reason they do utilize me is, they respect the work that I do, and they respect the fact that I don't get involved in the boxers, in the boxing trainers, in the way of whatever he wants out of his athletes. I know my place. Mm-hmm. Strength, condition, nutrition, supplementation, make sure he's on weight. I know my place. Who's
your 3 favorite people you got to work with? You're glad you did.
Chad. Definitely Chad is one of them. I really enjoyed working with Castillo. I think I'm going to enjoy working with Vargas, probably because I can see a lot of potential to be able to change and strengthen him even more, make him, a little more complete of a fighter like his trainer wants. Mm-hmm. But definitely I think the biggest, I think, has been because of the way that he changes and he does the things that I asked him to do. I think Chad is definitely by far one of the better athletes. He's just this great athlete.
Yeah, and what sports did you play? Did you ever try boxing?
I did. I boxed as an amateur. Unfortunately, I started when I was 27, 28. So I took it on and I did some amateur boxing. I loved it, but I'm also a realist. Realistically, at 28, way too late to start. So I just started focusing on how I can make boxers, faster, stronger, better, and that's how I stayed in it. I do have I live in Kenner, Louisiana, which is right outside of New Orleans, and I do have an amateur boxing team there. So everything that I take from all these different training camps, I actually am able to bring it home to my kids to compete, and get a pretty decent team out here in Kenner.
It's incredible. And what do you have to say about obesity in America? It's kind of like an epidemic now. What do you think we could do to stop America from being such a fat nation?
In my opinion, that's a real sticking point with me because, you know, in all these cities, New Orleans being one of them, you know, I'm sitting here watching the commercial. The commercials kill me. The parents, what they're feeding these kids.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of education to the parents, you know, would go a long way. You know, and I think it's, you know, the sodas, the fast foods, if you just break down some of these fast food commercials and the Pop-Tarts and the toaster pastries, people think that this is good for their kids. It kills me. I think it's education. But, you know, education in a way that they can understand it, not just, you know, blaming them, because, you know, a lot of these parents, they don't know any better. You know, but if you tell them the right way and show them, you know, a few things, all it is to modify. They don't have to completely, everybody thinks that you got to just go on a diet, and diets don't work. Diets don't work for anybody. It's just to modify. And a small change in your diet will make all the difference in the world and help these kids out a lot. You know, I've got 2 children of my own, and I can't stand when, you know, they even ask me for McDonald's or a Coke or something like that. You know, but they're going to be kids.
Yeah.
You know, you know, you got to give them a little. But I think it's if you teach these parents, look, just modify it a little bit. I think we can make a big change. You know, I'd love to go speak at some of these schools and just let them know, just change this. If you're drinking 4 sodas a day, drink 1. You know, that's already cutting out 1,500 calories for the whole week.
Yep. True. Words.
You know, I'm only one person. You know, like I said, in my amateur boxing gym, I've got about 40, 50 kids, and a lot of these kids are just dropping weight like crazy just by listening to the modifications and moving around a little bit. You know?
Strength and conditioning coach Axel Murillo, one of the best in the business. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity. I appreciate it.